lines of work, but he's a real student of the game, and he understands fighters, and you know, he does a real good job. And you'll see traces of Roger in the things he likes to do and all of the fighters that he's working with.
If Laspada can work on his power just a little bit, he's got 17 wins and 7 by way of knockout. There comes Saleta coming in the ring. Gentleman by way of Poland. And that is a scheduled 8-rounder on the docket as we are at Caesars Tahoe in Lake Tahoe, Nevada, with our continuing coverage of heavyweight explosion. Fourth round knockout for Lou Savarese got us going here. Bob Principe has the official introduction.
Ladies and gentlemen, 8 rounds of boxing in the cruiserweight division. Judges are at ringside Doug Tucker, Pert Clements, and Herb Santos. Our referee for this bout is Norm Budden. First, fighting out of the blue corner from Las Vegas, Nevada, with a record of 17-1-1 with 7 by way of knockout. This fighter is weighing in at 189 pounds and wearing blue and white trunks. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Laspada. His opponent fighting out of the red corner from Warsaw, Poland, with a record of 20-2, 13 by way of KO. This fighter weighing in at 192 pounds and wearing red trunks. Ladies and gentlemen, Saleta.
That's what
your referee Norm Budden.
Shemek Saleta.
Shemek
was the nickname that Angelo done.
Gentlemen, you received your instructions in the dressing room at this time with any questions. Remember, protect yourselves at all times. Good luck.
Let's take a round number 1 scheduled for 8. These are cruiserweights. And there is Saleta by way of Warsaw, Poland, coming in off his only very tough loss. And Brian Laspada is, as we said, fighting for the 16th time here in 1994.
We'll know very early in this fight who's going to have the advantage, because like I said, I've seen Laspada fight 3 times and I've never seen him lose a round. So, but I've never seen him fight a guy with a reach advantage on him. But he's going to get down in that pocket a little bit and try to work that jab, that up jab that he uses so very well. And if he's successful in that, then Shemek Saleta will have a long night. If he takes Laspada off of his game plan, then, you know, it'll be a role reversal there. So this first 30 seconds, 45 seconds of this round is very significant.
Saleta certainly looks like the more physically impressive in the cruiserweight division, and we'll see what he's got. As we said, Laspada will often just use that jab, move for 8 rounds or 6 rounds, whatever the case may be.
And there he steps right in and becomes the puncher in this fight. His technique, you see Brian Laspada, he's got his right glove open in front of his face in a defensive position, his left glove all the way down below his waist, and his nose is already red there, but he works that up jab, and you know, there he tries a hook right hand off of it, but he works very well from that low angle in front of you, and he doesn't, like I said, people, when they were first seeing this kid, they all wanted to fight him, but as he's dusted them off one by one, he's gained a lot of respect in and around Las Vegas, Nevada, and that's not an easy place to get respect.
Busy fighter, as we said. You see there's already a little abrasion underneath that left eye, as Saleta's jab very effective.
No, he really has, and if Saleta beats him to the punch with the jab, then it's going to be a long night for Laspada.
Brian Laspada, Shemek Saleta from Poland.
A literal international smorgasbord here. Nice little up jab sneaked in by Laspada, and then Shemek answers with his own.
Shemek comes in, as we said, with a terrific mark.
Well, it's very hard. You know, he's 6'4" and a cruiserweight, and, you know, as an amateur in Poland, he was a very good stand-up boxer, but it was a huge transition for him to make coming to the United States and learning how to break down and bend at the knees. And Laspada, on the other hand, likes to fight from that. He makes himself short, whereas Saleta fights tall even for his size. I know that sounds confusing, but he's very rigid at the bottom of the back. There you see him try to bend a little bit.
Saleta's coming off his only loss, at least over here, to John McClain, a first-round stoppage back on August 27th. So this is, I guess, kind of a confidence booster, or supposedly when you lose a fight, you try to get back with an easy one, but by no means is this an easy matchup for Saleta.
No, it really isn't here. And what happens, you know, he's a Polish fighter here in the United States. He doesn't have a huge contingent following him or anything like that. And the fact that he had the setback against McLean, who's a very dangerous puncher, you know, they kind of said, well, now it's sink or swim. You know, we're not going to build this guy anymore. We're going to put him in tough, and we're going to see what happens. And that's why this is a really crossroads fight for Saleta.
As we look at Brian Laspada, as we said, the cornermen, including the former two-time world champion, the Black Mamba. And there is action round number 2.
There's a combination landed by Brian Laspada, his best of the round.
Laspada is only 21 years of age. Round number 3 scheduled for 8 rounds, cruiserweight. Przemyslaw Saleta and Brian Laspada. Saleta rolling into town with a 20-2 mark. Laspada 17-1, and pretty much what we thought we'd see from Laspada is the jab work in overtime, continuing to circle his opponent. And Saleta trying to track him down, and past year, not too many fighters have been too successful at that.
A lot of the difference here is, you know, Brian Laspada has been fighting 4- and 6-round fights and is stepping up to 8. Saleta has been fighting 10- and 12-round fights and is stepping down to 8. Although, you know, who those records are fashioned against is also very significant in this business. But I'd have to say that Saleta has been in with the tougher competition, with a win over Dennis Andries and, you know, several other well-seasoned cruiserweights.
The ageless Dennis Andries, who I believe will be on the next card on Heavyweight Explosion.
He parlayed that loss to Saleta into a world championship attempt, as oftentimes we see happen in this business.
Cruiserweights, it'll be taking Wamba and Andres. I believe that fight will be in Paris. Laspada trying to get a little more aggressive. Left hand seems to be his main weapon, the hook and the jab.
But Saleta continuing to reach him with his own pawing left jab. Brian Laspada doesn't want to get into a position of having to land heavy punches in order to win a fight. You know, like I said, I mean, I had him lose in the first round. The first time I ever saw him lose a round, it was a very close round. But he landed the best combination of the round with a left hook right hand, but Saleta landed close to a dozen jabs, I thought, to swing it in his favor.
Saleta has a actually he's at a disadvantage at 1 inch, so Laspada 77-inch reach and Saleta a 76-inch reach. And as you said, Laspada doesn't run into a lot of people with an equivalent reach, so he's had to adjust a little bit tonight. And Saleta has really gotten a jab in there consistently.
Yeah, and those measurements that we get from these guys are off the cuff. Oftentimes they haven't been certified by anybody, because Saleta certainly seems to be the more rangier of the two to me, looking at him. But this is I mean, Brian Laspada, there's more to him than we've seen before. You know, he's won a lot of fights just with his left jab, but, you know, he can do more than that. But if you're controlling a guy in a fight, you know, you don't necessarily change to see, you know, what else works. Some guys do, but it's not necessarily the most conservative way to win a fight. I think in this fight, we're going to see other aspects of his arsenal.
Very, very even round. Both fighters still sizing it up. Laspada's doing what he does best, and that's pretty much staying on the outside. And Saleta trying to force the action a little more as we wrap up round number 2. If you had Brian Laspada, from my vantage point, I feel he has to physically just get bigger, get stronger. I don't know what you do. You send him to the weight room, but, you know, if he's going to really compete against real strong, consistent cruiserweights like the Orlin Norrises and things like that, and be a fighter people buy tickets to see, I think he's just going to have to get a little bigger and stronger.
Well, you know, it's hard to be, you know, you have to take the physical attributes that are given, you know, God-given to a fighter and make the most out of them. You can't, punchers are born, they're not made. And if a guy's got heavy hands, you know, he's going to take advantage of that. But not everyone is.
Round number 3 scheduled for 8 cruiserweights. Saleta in the red trunks, Laspada in the blue trunks, and a very tough fight to score. Bob, just a quick little...
I called the second round even after having given the first round to the Polish fighter. But, you know, getting back to what we were talking about, Laspada is just a kid. He's just a baby. You know, the fact that, you know, he's developed very well out here in Las Vegas after, you know, moving out from upstate New York where he was born. You know, he's developing as a fighter. This, like I said, is the toughest fight that he's in. But you know, let's see what he can do with Saleta. And you know, he's trying different things. But you see him attacking from that low angle down there, trying to hit Saleta with the up jab. But you know, this is what it's all about. You're developing a fighter. You know, you get him some good work fights. You build his record. Then you take a step up. But when you take a step up, you want to have international television exposure, which the heavyweight explosion offers here. And you know, if the guy goes at risk and takes a shot, you know, you want everybody to see it. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword because you know, if he's not quite up to the task, everybody's going to see that too.
Very evenly matched thus far. Pretty much how we had scouted it. Saleta trying to force his way in a little bit. And Laspada continuing to circle to his left. Right hand by Saleta really got through there.
Saleta's bit by bit, you know, winning the battle of inches here. His jab is scoring, and Brian's not having as much success with
His right hand as he got Laspada coming in.
Nice jab there by Laspada. That's what he's got to do. He's got to get busy with that. Usually he's painting that, he's working it, but you know, he hasn't been very successful in blocking the counter jab of Saleta. It's a battle of jabs here, as it was advertised.
How do you rate Saleta's progression since coming over?
Well, I think he's, you know, he's bending at the knees better. He's got a huge adaptation to make because he was, you know, had a lot of amateur fights as a boxer and was also a very accomplished kickboxer, which, you know, the balance and the way that a kickboxer fights, you know, with his hands is much different than the way a fighter fights. And you know, so he really had to change a lot of things, and I think he's coming along quite well. You know, he's in a tough spot because, like I said, he's just been stopped by a dangerous puncher, and he's got to turn it all around in this fight. And you know, he's coming to Nevada to fight Brian Laspada, which is an awful long way from home. So he's got a lot of things to overcome here in this fight, and he knows it because he's working at it.
Working hard, only 24 years of age, already with a 20-2 mark. Round number 3 coming to a close. Another tough round to score as the two cruiserweights head back to the respective corners, so we could look at Saleta's corner. And we'll have Bob Spagnola do the Polish translation of that, if he could, please.
Actually, Przemyslaw has really worked very hard at his English. It shames me the time when these guys come over here in a year and they master our language. And
we have people who live their entire life and they haven't mastered the language.
They're still ugly Americans. But I gave that round to Saleta. You know, I thought he's swinging this fight in his favor, doing just a little bit more every round. Not a lot of clean punches being landed in that exchange, but both guys are very willing.
Hasn't been the case watching Brian Laspada. Pick up. Round number 4, and it hasn't been the case with Brian Laspada that the other fighters almost start adapting his style as the fight progresses. Well, I think that Saleta, it looked like, wants to be more aggressive, but he almost ends up in this jab war.
Well, you know, the fights that I've seen of Brian Laspada thus far, he's been in with, you know, fighters that came right to him and tried to pressure him, and he moved around the ring. But I've never seen him with a guy, you know, a head taller than him like Saleta. I don't know what the stats say their height is, but Saleta, you know, fights tall, and he seems to, you know, to me, to have a leverage advantage on Brian. Although Laspada, he likes it at that low angle, or at least he's been very successful. But he might have to make some changes here in this fight, and now he's getting roughed up on the ropes a little bit by Saleta. And he lands a good right counter up to the temple of Saleta.
6'4" is Saleta, and 6'2.5" is Brian Laspada, although Saleta certainly fights a lot taller than it, at least from, you know, our vantage point here. Saleta has a really terrific jab, a little more powerful than Laspada.
He's worked it up and down, and Brian seems a little bit frustrated, but this is the kind of thing that he shows a lot of guys. You know, he lets them get brave and comes to him, and he lures them into traps, and then he goes to work on them. But you know, so I don't think that there's been any war of the minds or anything, any significant turning of the tide here. But I do have Saleta winning the fight just based on the fact that he's moving forward and landing a higher percentage of his punches.
Big upgrade in competition for the man in the blue trunks, as we mentioned before.
But, you know, they knew that Saleta's not a dangerous puncher. They know they've got a good boxer, and, you know, they were confident in the fight. They see him, you know, getting drilled by a guy like McLean, but that, you know, that can happen to anybody. And they were very concerned, Brian Laspada's people, because they know they've got a real good prospect. And, you know, you never like to make a mistake, but, you know, when you put a guy at risk, when you move him up, you know, you're always taking a risk. And that's, you've got to do that. You know, you got to, but it's not going to kill Brian Laspada if he ends up on the short end of a decision. He's improved out every time that I've seen him, and, you know, it's not the end of the world. Saleta, on the other hand, has got a tremendous amount of pressure on him because, you know, he'll be back in Poland, you know, with another loss.
Good point, yeah.
And Poland's not the place to be for professional boxing.
Again, battle of jabs in round number 4 is Saleta trying to put the pressure on, and now Laspada tying him up. Brian Laspada, Saleta, round number 4 comes to a close. Another difficult round to score. Bob Spagnola's score sheet looking a little edge toward the Saleta angle here.
Well, Saleta, I think, is throwing more punches, and they're both averaging, you know, probably about a 50% connect with the punches that they're throwing, but they're both being very economical with their shots. They're jockeying for position mostly.
Tune in on the Roger the Black Mamba.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know her, you love her. This is Cindy.
Roger Mayweather has been around the block more than a few times and continues to still now campaigning in the welterweight division, has won titles at 130 and 140, and now fighting in the mid 140s. Round number 5 from Caesars Tahoe, part of the Heavyweight Explosion Series. Brian Laspada and Przemyslaw Saleta from Warsaw, Poland, in a very tightly contested cruiserweight 8-rounder.
You know, Laspada had luck. I mean, and I don't say luck, but he landed a nice left hook, right hand combination right in the first round. He looped it around Saleta's jab, and you know, that's been the best combination that he's landed in the fight. And he might have to get off the jab a little bit and adapt. And there you see him, you know, getting on the inside a little bit and mixing it up. He can't afford to continue to stay on the outside. There he goes again. He lands a right hand, and a third time. So you see, as we talked about earlier in the fight, Laspada was going to have to make some adjustments. You know, change, not just use the jab, but, you know, the hook and the right hand, and that's what he's trying to get started here. And he's having the beginning of his best round of the fight.
Brian Laspada, not known to be the aggressor, but I feel I'm sure his corners know that this is a very, very tightly contested fight, and he'll have to do something to sway the judges' opinion.
Now, the way he started this fight, this round right here, is what he's got to do, and that's, you know, sometimes jab to the body, then right hand up, or left hook, then right hand up. He's got to continue to do it, though. He can't rest on the first 30 seconds of the round.
And Brian Laspada is talking about a veteran Saleta who's been deep into fights, as you mentioned, 10s and 12s, and Brian Laspada at this Crossroads fight. Lunging left hook, snaps back the head, but Laspada is almost always backpedaling, so the thrust of those punches sometimes is lessened by that.
He really does. He's got kind of a herky-jerky style, and he takes off a lot of his opponent's punches. But, you know, this isn't really where he wants to be, wrestling on the ropes with Saleta.
No.
Saleta's also hit him with a couple of decent body shots. You need to lean him down and then arch that right hand over the top. That's what he had success with early in this round.
Spada looking for a shot to get in there, and Saleta continues to stalk and stick the jab out and try to get into a more inside fighting match, which would be to his benefit.
Saleta seems fresher of the two, but Brian, he never looks, you know, fresh. I mean, he's just, I mean, he fights much better than he looks.
Good jab by Saleta, snapping it out there. As you said, the reach advantage, although on paper appears to be Laspada, but visually, without question, it goes to Saleta. Coming to the conclusion of round number 5 from Caesars Tahoe. Very tightly contested cruiserweight. A good round for Brian Laspada. And how do you have it scored so far, Bob?
I've got, I think I've got Saleta ahead by 1 point or so at the end of that. Laspada just had his best round of the fight, but he's got to do more of that. He fought very well the first half of that round, but kind of settled back in the second half. He's got good people in his corner, and I promise you, they're telling him exactly what he's got to do.
Action round number 5. There is Laspada on the attack rather nicely.
3 jabs and a right hand, although seeing on that replay, they didn't. And there's another good jab, double jab, right hand. And then he gets locked up on the inside with Saleta. No, he started that round excellently, and that's what they're telling him he has to do. And that's what he has to do if he wants to swing this fight around, win these last few rounds, and win this.
Laspada Saleta heads into the last 3 rounds of this cruiserweight. Your referee on this bout is Norm Budden, a 20-year veteran who is native of Carson City, nearby Carson City.
And Norm, as usual, doing an excellent job. You know, we haven't called his name once, because a lot of times when you see a real good referee working, you never notice him.
Last 3 rounds be critical for both these fighters, as it's very, very close to call, as Laspada trying to turn up the heat a little bit with the left jab.
And then Brian's, you know, he's started this round off moving and throwing some good jabs, and he's changing it up. You know, the last round he started off coming to him and trying to land double jab right hands. This round he's backing up and taking something off it, but Saleta has been a lot more consistent with what he's trying to do, move forward and force the fight, although Laspada snaps his head back there again.
Laspada's jab is probably a little underrated from the power standpoint. It has probably a little more punch than it looks like.
He does. You know, Brian isn't the kind of a guy like Buster Mathis Jr. that we'll see later in the program. You know, he's not, you know, physically awesome to look at, but that means nothing. When you get in the ring with a guy, you see guys that look like that sometimes are the strongest. And, you know, those guys with all those muscles really, you know, I mean, some of them, you know, they can get the job done, but some of them, it just slows them down and you know, takes up a lot of oxygen.
Round number 6. Cruiserweights, very hard to call. It's definitely a fight of styles right now. Brian Laspada living in nearby Las Vegas. And Saleta, trained oftentimes by Angelo Dundee. Warsaw, Poland.
There's a lot of holding here a little bit as Saleta tries to force the action. You know, we haven't mentioned much. We're at 6,700 feet above sea level here, and that'll take Laspada to continue to hold. But he, you know, he fights off the inside. He hits, he holds. You know, he gets the job done.
As we said 40 seconds ago in round number 6. Corner telling Brian to turn up the heat a little bit. Fighting with his mouth open a little more, though. As you said, the altitude
may have an effect here. Although Brian's, you know, living in Las Vegas with a couple thousand feet elevation.
Laspada turning up the heat, and Saleta not pretty much taking.
Laspada being warned for holding there by Budden.
Round number 6 coming to a close from Caesars Tahoe in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. We're going to check in on the corner activity as we'll first, I believe, check in with Przemyslaw Saleta as
Rick Mandris talks to him in between rounds. See what words of wisdom he's got.
Hey, slowing down. I know he's slowing down, but I want you to pick it up. All right? I want you to pick it up. Big smile, big smile, big smile. Bring that bucket up.
Seems to be whispering to him, but I think what he's telling him is he seems like he's slowing down a little bit. Let's pick it up and you know, these last 2 rounds, this fight's up for grabs.
You have to bend over, that's why you get hit with the jab. Bend over, keep your hand tight to your face. And 2 jabs. Every time you throw 1 jab, you got to throw 2. You throw 2, you got to throw 3. And he don't throw but 1. Look to go over the jab. If you ain't going over the jab, double jab, right hand right behind you.
Okay, let's go, Roger. Come on out.
last 6 minutes of this cruiserweight battle. Brian Laspada and Przemyslaw Saleta, and thus far a very tightly contested bout, and the last 2 rounds will undoubtedly decide this one, as all the judges can look at both fighters have done some very good things.
Roger Mayweather telling his steed there in the corner, listen, if he's, you know, he throws a jab, you throw 2. He throws 2, you throw 3. He wants him to out-count him here. And Laspada is very capable of that. He throws 3, 4, 5 jabs sometimes, but he's, you know, when you get caught with the other guy's jab in the middle of yours, it can be very unsettling, and it's been part of the, you know, it's not a hard shot, but it breaks your rhythm, and Laspada's, you know, he's the kind of guy that establishes his rhythm early in the fight and carries it through, and he's had some problems with Saleta in that.
And you have to wonder sometimes, Brian Laspada, having fought as much as he has, you know, sometimes you could come out flat for a fight.
Well, you could, and certainly, you know, fighters say that a lot of times. Hey, I just didn't have it today, but you know, he's been very consistent. Has been the strong point of Laspada, and that's why they've been, you know, keeping him busy. Some guys, you know, every time they have a fight, then they have a layoff, or you know, they got to, you know, settle back down and get out of shape and then get back into shape. But they've, you know, he's steadily progressed. But you know, they took a big step up in competition in this fight, and you know, he hasn't been outclassed by any means, but he's in a very close fight, and you know, I'm glad the officials will be the one to decide in this and not us. But there you see Saleta again is landing that jab. It's not got a lot on it, you know, and there the hook again, but there again the jab, the hook, he's scoring, and Brian isn't scoring as much.
Last fight for Brian Laspada back on October 20th, an 8th round win over Carl Williams. So that's about 2.5 weeks ago.
Carl Williams is a guy that fights as a cruiserweight and a heavyweight, a big, strong guy from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And before that, he beat Krishna Wainwright, who was, you know, another solid, you know, guy that had some good punching power. And I expected a really good fight. We had that on the heavyweight explosion out of down there on the Boulder, Arizona, or wherever we were. No, it wasn't Laredo.
Inside 30 seconds of going round number 7. Part of the heavyweight explosion today is cruiserweight explosion. Good exchange at center ring as Brian Laspada and Przemyslaw Saleta are putting some very impressive records on the line in this one.
It's a shame that somebody has to lose a fight like this because you know, both guys. But as I said to before, it would probably be more of a significant fight to be lost by Saleta, who lands a nice left hook there, than Brian Laspada.
And round number 7, and scorecards will be critical as we check in with the man to my right. Bob, how do you got it? About a point or 2 for Saleta?
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, looks like about a 1-point fight going into the last round. That last round was very close.
Brian Laspada looking in the corner, as we said. Roger Mayweather, who is never in a hurry to do anything. That guy is one of the characters of the sport. As we check out action round number 7, nice overhand right, but countered nicely by Saleta.
Yeah, Saleta slipped those. He just got out of range of him and then dropped in his own little right hand. No damage, no hard punch, but it scored for him.
We can look at the Circus Maximus room here at Caesars Tahoe. Critical last 3 minutes. Przemyslaw Saleta out of Warsaw, Poland, 20-2, taking on Brian Laspada, 17-1-1. Cruiserweights, 8 rounds. This is round number 8, and the scorecards, at least from our vantage point, very, very tight.
Very tight. And you see Laspada get out here after talking to Roger Mayweather and really keeping that jab working. Gets hit with a little left hook there, but lands his own combination.
Holding tightly is Laspada. Holding on to Saleta, is doing some pretty good work inside.
Yeah, it's hard to tell when Brian's fighting, you know, who's holding really, because he'll get up on the other guy and make him look like it. But certainly you can see in the face of Brian Laspada that he's had a few, been hit with some shots here today. No huge punches, but
some shots by Saleta. Good combination inside. Like I say, none of these are super clean, but they are enough to score. Big right hand over the top.
Probably the best punch of the fight from either man. Saleta knows, you know, this is his fight to win right now at this point, and he wants to leave no doubt in anybody's mind that, you know, he came and he conquered, because this was, like I said, you know, he was about to get his passport stamped if he went home, if he didn't win this fight. And
another right hand.
Right hand. And Laspada comes back with his own right hand. Excellent action here in the 8th and last round. As we said, both guys know everything's on the line here. Saleta smiling at him a little bit.
Looks like Saleta would like to get into more of a slug match.
Yeah, I think he's found that he's the stronger of the two. And there again, he's really having his best round of the fight right now.
Turning nicely on his punches is Przemyslaw Saleta. Getting inside, and Laspada, I think, is really learning to respect almost all the punches. The jab has been very stiff this round, and that right hand has been there about 2 or 3 times.
But like I said, I think, you know, this is not a career-threatening situation for Brian Laspada. You know, he's in, you know, he wasn't an undefeated fighter. He had a blemish on his record prior into this, and he's got a big following down in Las Vegas, and they'll dust him off, and he'll come right back, and they'll be looking for a rematch with Saleta if it goes that way. I mean, I've got Saleta winning the fight at this juncture, and but I'm not so sure that anybody else will see it that way, because it has been give and take for both guys.
And this is Nevada.
Oh, but then another big right hand by Saleta. For the first time in the fight, he's finally reaching Laspada with some clean shots.
And Laspada's not fighting back either, which is often a telltale sign that he's pretty much gas tank could be on ease. Just taking shots right now inside 15 of round number 8. And Przemyslaw Saleta out of Warsaw, looking very strong here to wrap up this 8-rounders. Laspada's legs appear to be a little bit on the wobbly side. Very good 24 minutes of boxing. Przemyslaw Saleta and Brian Laspada, cruiserweights, part of the heavyweight explosion at Caesars Tahoe. And we will turn this one over to the judges' scorecard. Of course, still to come, our main event, the USBA Heavyweight Championship. Buster Mathis Jr. will be taking on Lyle McDowell. That is his scheduled 12-rounder. First half, of course, the heavyweight, Lou Savary scoring a 4th-round knockout over Kenny Merritt. We'll see if we can continue the explosions in the heavyweight division. Our next bout coming up in just a short time after we hear the announcement of this one. And you have, what, Saleta, about two-point winner, Bob?
Yeah, about a 2-point winner after a very strong final round.
Action round number 8, you see Saleta getting over that overhand right was there and snapping back the head very crisply.
Yeah, he put an exclamation point on a really good performance, and you know, it was a tough fight. It's a shame somebody had to lose.
Bob Principe has the official tally.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a unanimous decision. All 3 judges score the bout 80-72. For the winner, from the red corner, Przemyslaw Saleta.
Wow, the judges saw it just a little bit different than we did. Przemyslaw Saleta, very impressive. Almost 80-72. He wins every round.
Yeah.
Somebody didn't
really
like Brian Laspada here.
Well, he You know, there was it was a good fight.
Our main
Tough fight
event
for both
guy
guys,
who's
and
the
you
same
know
thing
the
in
right
front
man
of
won. So
Yeah,
no
you're
use.
sharp with a guy like this.
But Brian Laspada will be back. This isn't the last we'll see him by any means.
But still to come, of course, our main event, and that is the USBA Heavyweight Championship.